Hi everyone, I'm Benedict Mathey. I'm Senior Account Executive at Darktrace, and today I'm going to talk about the changing cyber landscape and in particular the battle of algorithm. I'm going to have a first discussion about what is the current and the future trends that we expect into the offensive side of AI. How is it used already at the moment, and what type of of pattern we will expect for the future when it comes to using AI to generate more subtle, more sophisticated, and in a much faster type of cyber threats. In the second part, I will also discuss about the immune system approach and how AI is capable of, detecting this much subtle type of threats, but not only detecting, but also taking autonomous response in order to make sure that we can take actions when the human beings are lacking. And the third part, I will show you some of the examples that happen in some of our clients, and I want to share you 3 real case and how we worked with Darktrace in detecting this type of threats. But before I do that, I just want to give you an overview for the ones who are not fully aware of Darktrace. So we are a cybersecurity company. We are leading the field in AI and unsupervised machine learning. We were founded by mathematicians at the University of Cambridge in 2007 and 13, so about 7 years ago. We've been since then growing tremendously up to now having the possibility, having not only over 4,000 customers worldwide in about 110 countries, but also we've been elected, for instance, by the Financial Times, one of the Europe fastest growth company in the world, and also one of the companies to look at in the tech space around the world. And we've been leading not only the usage of AI into the detection capacity, but also into the autonomous response type of technology. And throughout our platform, you'll be not only able to cover the physical environments, but also the virtual, the cloud, SaaS, or emailed environments. Today, as I said, we will talk about the paradigm shift into the cyber landscape. And I want first to talk about, there's a lot we can talk about, obviously, in that, but I've selected 3 topics that I'd like to share with you. The first one being the introduction of 5G and IoT devices. And in that sense, we are obviously seeing more and more advanced cyber threats, and the usage of 5G, which will increase a lot. The speed of the attacks will give an advantage to the attackers to be able to generate threats, generate attacks when it comes from malware, ransomware, that will be able to spread and to even exfiltrate data in a much faster pace than we used to have before then. All the IoT devices are making our networks much more complicated, and we will have much more devices interconnected in the world, which obviously give an extra challenge to the cybersecurity teams. Gartner told us that we have at the moment about 14 billion IoT devices connected, and we expect to go up to 25 billion in 2022. So obviously, all this landscape is going to make the task much more complicated for a human being to be able to work throughout all these interactions and all this sophistication that comes within the network. We will see obviously an evolution not only into these interconnected devices, but also in what makes our network. We will see much more hybrid type of infrastructure, relying more and more on cloud environments. COVID probably accelerates this shape, where a lot of companies decided to put data into the cloud using much more virtual resources in order to be able to keep the business going, even if the people are working remotely. And these extra challenges are very important because for security teams, it's very complicated for them to get security, get visibility over these cloud environments. And this extra challenge, obviously, is going to be increased more and more in the future. And the third one is linked to the increased threats in critical national infrastructure. What we see is that in the past there was a lot of manpower involved in order to be able to attack critical infrastructure. Nowadays, what we can see is that the goal of attacking this critical infrastructure, whether it is in the energy, whether it is in the defense industry, is not only attacked at the goal of stealing data and selling it outside or from a national, from a country to a country, but also we can see by the use of AI and the use of more sophistication in these attacks that the trend is that more and more people are capable of attacking this very, very complicated type of environment. And AI is obviously will help these attackers going and target this type of infrastructures. What is complicated, obviously, is that not only people are going to try to steal data from this type of environments, but they will also try to disrupt the business, disrupt the functionality, and obviously all this complexity, all this new dynamic is making obviously the work for cybersecurity teams much more complicated. And obviously, as I said, the complication comes from this part of the AI use that is used much more into the offensive part of a malware or ransomware. And not only we can see at the moment early signs of AI and machine learning used in new malwares, not only with the idea of being able to get through the regular tools that we are using, but also in order to be able to exfiltrate data in a much quicker way and find ways to touch some parts of the environment that would be were very difficult to go undetected in the past. And the use of AI will give the possibility to the actors to better understand the normality and the activity of every environment. From there, they will be able to automatically take actions and decide which type of behavior, of actions within the network is the smartest to take. And that's always in the goal of not being detected and being able to keep on exfiltrating data, for instance, in that case. The tactics will be changing. So not only having the possibility to go through a certain stage, but there is a goal of staying for a longer term into the network and keep on being undetected. So we're seeing an increase of polymorphic malwares, for instance, but also tactics to make sure that you can use tactics that are linked to the normal, that will be basically hidden into the normal behavior, the normal interactions that we can see within the network, but also when it comes to interacting with the people around us. And that could be to our clients, to our partners, or also to our clients. And from there, we'll be able not only to smartly remain in network, but also get totally undetected into the fact that we will be able, with AI, to, in a much smarter way, move from a network to another. And that would obviously increase the scale of the capacity from the attackers. One of the things that we used to do, we know that the goal into attacking using social engineering was always linked to the fact that we we're trying to, it was always a trade-off between the effort and the money we can make, and a lot of time when it came to targeted attack. It required a lot of manpower, a lot of time, a lot of understanding of who, for example, is the employee that is the weakest, if I may say, who is the person to target, who is, what's the person doing? Is the CEO talking to a certain trade show? And I can send an email to this person and link it in a smart way that these people would connect. Everything used to take a lot of time. So what we expect as well is the use of the AI to be able to compile all this information about what is the last comment on LinkedIn, who is this person talking, what are the new topics, and so on, to be able to even target even more the person in the company, and in a much smarter way that it will be very, very difficult for human being to get undetected. And there is obviously here we can see an example of a spear phishing attack, something maybe that is not that smart, in the sense that we not only see that the person who's sending the email is totally unknown for the company. We can see some spelling mistakes as well. Incredible is an example, and that's because the attackers sometimes, don't try to be too specific. What they want is to attack in a very large scale and make sure that throughout this mass they can get enough people to have a good return, and with a limited time that is done into creating this type of campaigns. Don't forget that 94% of the threats come from the inbox, from the email, and that's going to be that's a challenge. It's always going to be a challenge when it comes to using AI. So we have an example here of an automated email that was using signs of more clever ways to attack. So we will see not only someone that appears to be totally legitimate from a totally legitimate company, and with the email that we'll be able to understand, the AI will be able to replicate the way people interact by learning, how they used to interact, for instance, in the past, and from there be able to use a common ground or use a common event or common situation that will be a way for us to, as a human being, to be almost impossible for us to see if it's actually a spear phishing attack or if it's a legitimate attack. And what we see a lot is obviously emails coming with suspicious link in Word attachment, and that goes totally undetected by our traditional gateways and tools we use. And this capacity of using AI in order to really mimicate even more the human being and give much more context and be able to arrive at the right time with the right topic will definitely be a trend that is going to come up. And traditional tools are going to be short towards this new usage of AI. Before I show you some real examples of how Darktrace detects threats, I want to give you a little bit of insight of the Darktrace way of helping companies to defend themselves about this upcoming most sophisticated threats. And we use what we call the immune system approach. The analogy to the human being and the way our body works is very interesting, because what we understand is that everybody's body is constantly under attack when it comes to viruses or bacteria, and the skin is used as the first layer of defense. It uses to basically fight back about everything that is known to be abnormal. You can make a link obviously to our cybersecurity stack and the tools that we use based on rules and signatures. But the human body has an immune system that is adaptive. It's capable of knowing the self, knowing self, and knowing the healthy behavior of the body. And when new bacteria, new virus enters the body, the body is still capable of taking actions, even though it doesn't know the new virus, the new bacteria, it's because it knows that there is an abnormality in the normal healthy function of the body, and that's basically what we want to do on the cybersecurity level and on the network level. We have a technology that's totally autonomously is going to analyze the behavior of each user, each device, all the interaction within the internal network, and we create what we call a pattern of life on these so-called devices and users. And what we're going to look at, it's in real time, all the abnormal behaviors that are signs on the kill chain of abnormalities that could be basically threats that went throughout our traditional tools. And to do that, we not only want to give the possibility to have the possibility to see threats that are going totally undetected, APT 0 days, but we want to beneficiate from Darktrace to take autonomous response. We talked about the 5G earlier. We talked about IoTs, this complexity, this trend of seeing attacks that would be able to spread in a much faster way throughout the network. It's not going to make the life easier for human beings in security teams. By using autonomous response, we'll be able to take action in real time within the second towards abnormal behaviors and potentially the first sign of threats. And what we do is we use this approach of this pattern of life, as I said, in order to make sure that the AI can be sufficiently precise in the decision making to let the business continue. And how it does that? It will understand what is the healthy, normal behavior of the users and the machines throughout the network, and understand what is linked to the abnormality. And instead of traditionally taking out the device, for instance, what we're going to be able to is to take actions towards this so-called abnormal behavior and make sure that what has been analyzed by AI to be totally legitimate, these actions can, up to a certain threshold, still functionate. A good example, if you have a data exfiltration issue, for instance, instead of blocking the entire device, we will be able to block the source IP to the destination IP via specific port and really block this abnormal connection and make sure that the rest continues and that the threats doesn't escalate. I want to give you now a few more examples of what Darktrace has been detecting and how we helping companies throughout the world. One of the first examples I've chosen was an advanced ransomware infected telco. So we're working here with a telecommunication company. And what we've seen here, it's a user who opened his personal mailbox, basically on his corporate laptop. What has been done is that he clicked on the wrong link, downloaded a new and advanced type of malware that very quickly and went very fast. That's probably a pattern that was much quicker than what we saw on other malwares. And the objective was obviously, as a ransomware, was to exfiltrate data and encrypt and exfiltrate data in order to be sold on the market later. And it took only, so the first sign for us was to see that a device, as soon as it started, a file was downloaded from what we call a 100% rare IP. As we are looking at the normality and we are not considering rules and signatures and reputation-based approach, what we look at is the abnormal connections that are occurring around the company. And when a new connection is done to an external network, and from there we see an increase of patterns of abnormalities, as I said, on the kill chain, that's where we want to be able to first give in real-time alerts to the team, but also use the anti-GINA, the autonomous response, to be able to take the right actions, sufficiently specific, in order to make sure that we stop the encryption in that case. And that's when we talk about here having 9 seconds gap in order to take action, it comes very clear that for human beings, it's a very short time and probably unachievable to take action in real time. And that's when we need nowadays, but we will need even more this capacity to put an AI solution against an AI solution. If we are attacked by AI, we are in the need to use the same type of technology to defend ourselves. Another example I want to share with you today, it's with a power and water company. What we saw here, it's a smart ransomware that was used to basically try to mimic a normal behavior that would happen in the network. And what we see is that the first thing that we saw is that the infection made the download of a self-signed SSL certificate that was linked to a Windows update. And the idea behind that was to be able to pretend that the activity was totally legitimate, and that our traditional tools were not capable of detecting it. What we saw with Darktrace is the first time it was connection that was done through HTTP, and we saw a use of the port 443 and 80, and this sophistication, it's going to be much more important, because what we expect is that, as I said earlier, the AI in the offensive way will be able to move and understand by itself what is the normal communications going on, and be able to use very well-known ports, for instance, in a certain dynamic that they will always appear legitimate. And obviously we need to be able to understand what is self, what is normal, to detect such I would say such adaptive and such clever way of deploying ransomware and of attacking us. And AI is not only a good way, but it's also a way for us to be able to rely on this type of tools to see what we wouldn't be able to see and when we do our regular investigations with our traditional approach. A last example before I sum up. I want to give you an example about a device. So we're working here with a medical technology company, and we have an example of a data exfiltration, obviously very, very sensitive in this industry, and they are going to be obviously targeted a bit more with much more sophistication. And this attack shows us that we have a case here where it was a mix between AI-driven attack and some understanding of the activity of the client. And what we saw here, it's a very slow pace and small package sent that were exfiltrated, up to a point that they were able to every time have connections that were slow enough, and the package that were sent were small enough that it goes totally undetected by the traditional tools and what we call the legacy tools in that case. And what we saw at Darktrace is that, first of all, we had a connection to an IP that was totally 100% rare for the network, totally unknown for the legitimate activity of the network, and that we saw hundreds of connections going throughout 24-hour time to this IP address, with always packets that were sent that were below 1 gig. So what we noticed is that throughout a very short period of time, they managed not only to exfiltrate would have been discovered by the other tools, but also to exfiltrate up to 15 gigabytes. And this is very important, because all this complexity, all this understanding of, you know, what are the thresholds, what are how the tool can, you know, how the attack can be done without being detected by our legacy tools, is going to become much more clever, and we will be able to see from the offensive part, a better usage of DCI in order to be working even smarter throughout our regular tools. So today, I hope I could give you a good understanding of our vision about the future, why we consider that it is time and it will be even more legitimate and more justified to start using AI in order to keep the same pace, be at the same level of the attackers, and make sure that AI can help us, support us when the human beings are failing, and have the possibility to work in such a quantity data that we're basically not able as human beings to do, but work around AI in order to make sure that we can understand this sophistication, understand the abnormal, understand these threats, and take the right actions. Not only detect them in real time, but also use AI to be able to take the right action in real time and help us avoid an escalation in the threats. So thank you, everyone. Please don't hesitate to contact me. You can find me on LinkedIn, for instance, or don't hesitate to contact Darktrace. We'll be very happy to discuss further with you guys. And I wish you a good day. Bye-bye.